Hey everyone, so I know it's been a little while since our last one, but I wanted to come on and play something a little bit different before I jump back into Sound F. And I know I've done the sketchbook demo. There's a few other things I want to talk about. Pragmata, I'm not that far in, probably, only the first section. I've defeated 2 bosses on there, so again, I haven't played it in full, so I don't know how far into the game that is, but there's quite a few things I've noticed about the game other than what we've already talked about, other than the obvious, which we can see, which is Hugh with his visor looks like a robot, Diana in her, this guy, she looks like a human, despite that being the robot, that being the human. And I don't really want to talk about the whole controversy that media is trying to stir up with this game, because I feel like we're playing into their hands by doing so. I just think it's kind of despicable that it's even a conversation, and that I know the world is a bit messed up right now, but I think that men deserve a little bit more credit than that. I think we deserve a little bit more credit than that. So let's jump into it. So let's go. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to go further in the game. What I'm going to do is I'm going to backtrack and see if I can get a few of the different boxes and stuff with the new stuff. So right now I'm on my second set of armor that you get after doing a mini game. So this is very Japanese, like there's no other word to say it. Stuff like this really wasn't introduced into Western games until sort of like the 360 era, I think, and even then only adopted a little bit with like the gumball machines and stuff in Black Ops or wherever. It's a Japanese kind of thing. And you've got these bingo cards for doing VR missions, so again very sort of kind of Metal Gear Solid-esque. And once you win the first one, you get 2 different costumes. You get a costume for Hugh and a costume for Diana, so that's where I've opted for. No reason other than it was available. And you collect sort of like these things for her to play with as you go along. That's the collectibles. And in here you got your upgrade path, so it's very basic sort of like hack and slash kind of things you're allowed to do. So you can upgrade the robot, Diana, you can upgrade the gun, and you can upgrade yourself. And let's not forget at any point in this video that she is a robot, and it's not a she, it's an it, right? I think a lot of people get confused, and especially with the emergence of actual, I say actual, but LLMs and stuff, what they're calling AI, it's worth noting that it's a robot, it's an algorithm. And then over here you've got a lot more, so you can upgrade your weapons, you can upgrade your hacks, you can upgrade absolutely tons of stuff. So there's a lot more choice over on this side in terms of upgrades. The costumes do nothing, but I kind of like the teal color, and you can talk to Diana here. And someone said online, and I kind of agree with them, she's like kind of like a toddler who is literally just a newborn crossed with a toddler, which is kind of accurate.
Beats me.
But obviously I've talked about this on my Instagram and Reddit already, but this is a clear motivator for basically the low birth rates. I think that this is something that Capcom, or not just Capcom, it's not I don't think it's a nefarious corporate scheme. I think that it's let me just double check OBS. I did swap it over, didn't I?
Hey, it's actually pretty good. Shows you're a real cat lover.
Okay, so she's given us another drawing of a cat that she saw, but I just want to see if my OBS is working, because I've done this before and then got through the video and it didn't record, and then I had to re-record it. But I'm sure it did. Borderless window, so I should be able to jump out of it.
Somebody left their desk here.
Yeah, so we are in the right screen now, so that's good. I was worried about that, but okay. So let's get into the game and see what we see.
Still waiting.
So it's a fast travel. But what I do like about this game is it doesn't really try to be anything that it's not. They don't try and make up too much of a convoluted reason for why you can fast travel. There is a reason, there's a tram, but you know, it's not like super convoluted. You just take it at face value. And then let's start all the way at the beginning. So this is the same sort of sealed sector gate. Tell you what, let's just walk through it so you can see the kind of environments. This is the same area that the sketchbook demo was, but obviously they've sort of like mixed it up, remixed it for the actual release. And this is one of the only games, or only recent games, that I've actually started playing on ray tracing. So if we have a look over at the graphics here, everything's maxed out as usual, but if I can find it, so look, the texture quality's only got 3 GB here, so much less than Resident Evil. I've got frame gen should be off. So I've been playing it with frame gen. That I didn't know about. DLS super resolution, that should be at quality, so I don't know what that's been defaulting to. But yeah, so ray reconstruction and path tracing is off, but ray tracing is on, and I find that it just looks better with ray tracing than it does with path tracing. I think that the path tracing is noisy and it's expensive. It's extremely taxing for the visual gains that it is, and there's enough drawbacks to those. I just think that, you know, look at the reflections. The reflections look great on here with ray tracing, and as we saw in the sketchbook demo, it didn't actually have any path tracing features in the sketchbook demo, so it leads me to believe that it was a late stage implementation, maybe not the cleanest implementation. Maybe someone who can do a better video than me will do a video on it, like DF or something, but in terms of sitting this far from the screen, I think that ray tracing looks better. It just looks cleaner, and it's very noticeable when, you know, the environments are like this. The environments are very sparse and white, and there is something here, so that's what I'm after, but how do I get it? Not a clue. I can't shoot this and break the glass, so I don't know how I get into there. Is there a way from here? There is no way through there. I'll go in anyway just to show, but yeah, there's nothing here. So I think I've cleared this place pretty well. But in terms of gameplay, it looks like Vanquish a little bit, so obvious comparisons there, but to me it feels like Devil May Cry. And when we get into the next area, which I may fast forward to because there's no real need to go through all this, but it plays and looks a lot like Devil May Cry to me. Let me just sort this out. So we've got different weapons, so this one will knock them over, and then you've got time to do the hack, and the hacking is complicated enough that it makes the combat, I wouldn't say difficult, it's complicated enough that you have to really concentrate on the combat rather than just blow through enemies, and you know, it doesn't make enemies superficially difficult, you know, bullet sponges just to get that happening. But I'm going to go into this other area now, which is the area from the trailers, the New York City area. And as far as, you know, I'm concerned, like, a lot of things I think have been pulled from Devil May Cry. Capcom is notorious for asset reuse, but I mean, it's a different experience. People are loving it. What's there to say? I'm enjoying it. Is it groundbreaking? Is it life-changing? Is it the perfect version of what it could be? I don't really think so. Maybe it's if it's going to be anything, it would be, you know, as close to the Vision as possible, but the other two certainly not. I don't think that it's groundbreaking. It doesn't do anything new, and I don't think that it's very earth-shattering. But as you can see, we've got sort of these layered environments here, and this just carries on. So let's have a look outside. So you've got New York City, but it reminds me very much of like the London biomes. And you've got the sightseeing tour buses that look a lot like the buses from Devil May Cry, even the same sort of van. Right, these big dudes are a little bit difficult, so just bear with me. So you can put a decoy out, and then what I like to do is I like to hack this guy first, then knock him over. I missed it. Okay. And then you can use the charged rifle to just take him out in sort of 2 or 3 hits. Okay, so that was a bit slow, but you get the idea. I'm not sure about these cars. Obviously all the cars on Resident Evil 9 were sort of like 60s styled, and they're not very high. You know, the textures aren't crazy on them. Look they very much look like they could have been pulled from Devil May Cry. Same with this. I haven't played Devil May Cry 5 in a while, so you'll have to double check me on the buses, but the van is definitely very similar. And what do we have up here? Just another weapon, and you can swap it. You know, it's very video gamey, but this is the sort of stuff that reminds me of Devil May Cry. So I feel like it's taken a lot of ethos from Devil May Cry, which is the same foundations that Vanquish were built on. So they're automatically going to be similar, but then visually they're also very similar in aesthetic. So I don't know what they were thinking there. I mean, I would have probably personally tried to stay away from any connections with Platinum Games if I was Capcom, but like I said, it's an okay game. It's one of the first. It's got over 80% on Metacritic, which is where I struggle. I struggle to understand how a fairly average game can be rate. I don't understand what these journalists think when they come up with these ratings. Like this game, like if this is a mid-80s game and Resident Evil 9 is a high 80s game, like how do you how does one justify the difference? Like, I feel like in a lot of ways Resident Evil is so polished, and regardless of how I feel about pacing and other things, which I think are less than perfect, but it is so polished that it's very difficult to be able to say that that is a high 80s game and this is a mid 80s game. If you were to say, if we had to put numbers to it, and I haven't finished this game yet, so my opinion is pretty much void in that sense. But I would say that, you know, Resident Evil is probably closer in my mind to like an 8.5, maybe an 85%. Resident Evil 9, Requiem. whatever they call it. And this game is probably closer to a 7. And that's not a bad thing, like it's a solid 7. And it may punch up in areas, but overall I don't believe it's that good a game. Hacking is very simplistic. So far it's been, you know, the most simplistic you could imagine. So what's that? I don't know, but I have to get up to get another box, right? So saying up we go. So how does one reach there? Bear with me a moment. I'll try and figure it out. But so far I'm struggling to see how I do get up there. I think this game will age better than Resident Evil 9 because Resident Evil 9 is kind of like a shock and awe title. It just is so impressive, right, that you can't say much other than good things about it because it is so impressive. Whereas this is sort of a different beast entirely. Do I have a multi-hack? Can I multi-hack this guy? I don't think so. Doesn't look like there's any multi-hacks to be had.
How you like this?
Okay, I shouldn't have done that. That was a waste. So I activated the incinerator there. I was waiting for the old one out. I activated it by accident, doesn't matter. You're gonna see me struggle with some enemies in a moment. Because that's the thing, this game is easy when you use everything that is at your disposal. If you don't use everything at your disposal, it can get a little tricky, but not majorly so. Oh, see? Okay, let's take out some of these behemoths.
It's my turn.
Okay. So I've got the shockwave gun there, which I do want. Okay, so at least that will help us. And as you can see, a lot of the particle effects are what make this game nice to play. Reminds me of Neo 3 in that aspect. So it all depends on the player as well. Like I said, this to me is very Japanese. Doesn't lean into any sort of gritty realism. Oh, wow. Really had me there. Just like Dark Souls, you've got your Estus flasks. That's what they are, right? And you've got your sort of like last minute dodge. If anything broke, don't fix it, I suppose. But obviously this is completely new. This is something that I don't think I've seen before, is this little hacking minigame whilst you're fighting. The only thing that kind of comes close is perhaps Bioshock. I think there's like you can hack the those annoying flying things in Bioshock. Okay, let's keep going. But in games like this, like the combat is so responsive compared to sort of Resident Evil. That's why I sort of this is why I sort of rate it closer towards Devil May Cry. Like everything feels much more immediate. And I've got reasonings for that in my upcoming dissection of Resident Evil 9. I do believe there is a reason for that. Is that the right gun? If that's the right gun, I would... Yeah, okay, so I prefer the right gun over a net. And what are we looking for? We're still looking for that box. How does one reach that box? Or maybe it's a little Metroidvania-y. Maybe there is something I need before I can sort of reach that. Like, is there a double jump maybe or something that I don't have? I don't know. Either way, we've tried. Let's carry on through here. But it looks great. Like, it looks fantastic. On the Pragmata thing, I labeled it Dead Space Light. And in some ways, this kind of is. But it seems like the nickname Dad Space seems to have been adopted. Which I can't argue with either. I think Dad Space is a great name. It's a cracking name. So, what's going on? Where am I going? But yeah, as I was saying, everything feels far more immediate. There doesn't seem to be any sort of like wind up keyframes that take up too long. It's very responsive to the touch. Really like this game. But you can be objective. You can like a game and know that it's not amazing. But it's a very welcome change to sort of like have such a hard hitting game be very video gamey. So where am I going? Up here. Right, so that's well away. And is there any way up? I mean, this takes us up somewhere. Just back to the beginning. And then we're up here, where I found that box. But then where's the other box? Sometimes there's these invisible walls. So I'm gonna have one more look here, and then we'll call it a day. We can't find it. And then again, I found this one. But then how do you? Like, what's this? Ah, that's for the lasers. I don't even think I can get up there. Can I? Or is it up there that I need to be? How do I get up there? Do I need to come back when I have something else? There's nothing in here that can really help me. Might as well just open this whilst I'm here. Yeah. Okay, so it's definitely something I need to come back. And that won't let me back. Can only go forward. And everything sort of interconnects in this area. That big guy again. Should we try sneaking past him? So this is a big boss battle in the game up here. But I think it's empty now. Can't seem to see anything. Use her scan ability to try and find stuff. I haven't been here since the boss battle, so maybe there's something. Doesn't look like it. Oh well, that's just is what it is. So what do they have? Let's have a little look. Oh, I could eat a donut. What else is there? Ghouls and Ghosts. So that's an old Capcom title, right? It is Capcom, isn't it? Ghouls and Ghosts. New musical nights. See life beyond the round table. Okay. Nothing too. Like I said, it's nice, but it's nothing like wow, deep cut kind of like stuff. Like this, I mean, very video gamey. Kind of in a few ways, reminds me a little bit of that new Control game maybe as well. We'll see how that comes out. That's due out this year. But me personally, I prefer something tighter. Even though it's compact, I wouldn't call it tight. I think there is a difference. So here we are. I wanted to show you all this sort of place here. Diana's Donuts. But no, just like an overall feel, like the arcade section in Devil May Cry 5, where they go through the arcades in London. Like it's got that feel to it. And I know I can't prove anything or whatever, but the same goes for Resident Evil. Like when you're in that hotel, it just feels a lot like the Baker Mansion. And even to the point where later on, when you're in the you're playing as Grace, and you're in what is it called, Rose Hill Asylum, and there's certain sections later on, and you don't spend much time in those sections, but they kind of feel like the castle, you know, the vampire's castle from what's it called? Village. But it's also very simplistic, this game. But what I kind of forget as a sort of, especially as like a Capcom fan, is that this could be someone's first game. So I do try and keep that in mind when I play games, that this could be someone's first contact with video games. And I think that's a choice that I'm going to have to make early on, whether I'm going to adopt that practice with my video game and accept that it could be someone's first video game, or do I just go, this really isn't meant for noobs, and just full send? And I think you all know the answer to that question already, don't you? but you can do it intelligently as well. I can go full send, but still, you know, not absolutely demolish first and fourth gear, first and second gear. So, how do I change? Okay, here we are. So we've got one of each now. Like I said, that sort of section in Devil May Cry where they're in the arcade. It just reminds me of that section quite a lot. And even sort of like early game as well, there's a lot of like rooftop hopping, if I remember rightly, in Devil May Cry 5, similar to this. Obviously the biomes look totally different aesthetically, but underneath I think that they share a lot of similarities. You know, and if I wanted to be kind, I could say they share a lot of what works. And if I wanted to be cruel, I can say that they're building on top of something that they've already done before. No proof either way. All I can say is people seem to be enjoying it. And they've been enjoying Capcom games for decades. And they have had lulls and they have had missteps. But maybe it's as I said. Maybe it's in that it is a lot of people's first contact. Or I think that's one of the reasons why Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed in particular are very sort of... People are annoyed by them because they get them every year, right? Whereas I think that enough time passes by with Capcom, someone might dip in, dip out. And if you're a fan like me, then you sort of just understand that's part of their DNA. But yeah, I think that's the big problem with Assassin's Creed, and even with the extent of Shadows, because Shadows is a beautiful game, and it's not uninteresting to play, but I feel that Yasuke is so radically different from, you know, he can't climb. Which, you know, is Assassin's Creed, right? And it does such harm. Because, you know, playing as Yasuke, if you're coming from The Witcher 3, say, it's alright. It's nothing untoward. But I feel like... And despite all the... You know, I think that it's not great what they did with Yasuke. I think that it's... I won't say it's nefarious, but I feel that they could have been better, done it better, because, you know, Yasuke was a retainer of Lord Oba Nobunaga. That much is provable. Anything outside of that is speculation. But it's not speculation, because if he was a samurai, he would have been documented as one, like William. So there's that, and I feel like, you know, it's the equivalent of calling someone a duke or along those lines when they weren't a duke. And that people might be like, I don't care. And that's the modern world for us. Like, there's a lot of people who don't care, but there is people who do, and I feel like that part they did wrong. But that's by the by. What I'm saying is, I think that, you know, it's when you've had year on year on year on year games of a similar ilk, and especially with Shadows, because not only did it have Assassin's Creed, Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla, but it also had Rise of the Ronin, Ghost of Tsushima, Ghost of Yote. Well, Yote came after, but, you know, we were inundated with open world games, inundated with open world Assassin's Creed games, and inundated with open world feudal Japan games. So it really came at a wrong time. I think that if it came at any other time, controversy aside, it would have blown off. And I think that's why games like this can grab the spotlight, because it came at a time where what else is like this out there? And the answer is nothing. We haven't had anything from Platinum in a long while, and anything from Platinum similar to this, and I would say like Astral Chain maybe, very gamey game. I was about to say PSP. No, it's not quite that old. Nintendo Switch only. Or something maybe like Scarlet Nexus, which is heavily leans into the anime side, which probably put a lot of people off. So I think that this definitely come at a time where there's very little like this about. So it has that unique factor to it, regardless of how truly unique it is or isn't. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's a cool game to play. I think that it's priced right, at least in my market. It's priced at, you know, sort of like a AA title cost, whereas, you know, like this is 1,590 baht, and Resident Evil was 1,800 and maybe 1,890 baht, and Crimson Desert is like 2,000 baht. And Fatal Frame 2 is like 1,200 baht, so that's like, it's closer to the like the AA side than it is to the AAA side, pricing wise, which helps it a lot. Let me just see if I can get out to nope. Capcom games hate alt tabbing. Even the Windows button is not really doing anything. So let's quit out of this a minute. Exit game. And then we're back into OBS. So that's my thoughts on the beginning. Like I said, I'm 2 bosses in on Pragmata. I just thought it would be something fun to do that's a little bit different to Silent Hill F and shake it up a little bit. But yeah, I'll try and get Silent Hill F sort of nailed down very shortly. And yeah, I think that if you're in the market for a video game, some, you know, you want something to scratch that platinum itch, then I think that Pragmata does that job very well. I think that it's a solid game, and I don't think it needs to be overblown for being it. I think that credit where credit is due, you know, and by that I mean that, like, you can't call Resident Evil 9 amazing and then talk about Pragmata in the same breath, because Pragmata doesn't do what Resident Evil 9 does, that makes Resident Evil 9 like watershed. So there's that. I just want to say that, you know, credit where credit is due. They've done a lot of things great, and I love how they've kept it a video gamey game, but it is not an Alan Wake 2. It is not a Resident Evil Requiem. So there we have it. This is Banshee Interactive. I'm David Roberts. And remember, this is not a simulation.